Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's your girls in the house. My very own Ekwamwa and I are back again. I know I've been really naughty for the last couple weeks or so because I was in England. The timings was just off, and then we didn't get the opportunity to meet up. But I was really, really rooting, and I just couldn't wait for myself to get myself back to base so that I could calm myself down, but more importantly, to have this very important conversation with Ikuama because I wanted to hear your side of the story. I wanted to know what your mindset and your thoughts were as this whole story has unraveled. There's been so much commentary. Everybody has had their own opinions and things to say about these two. But for me personally, I have been really sad just to see how things have kind of gone forth and where we are right now. There's been a lot of insults, and people have said all kinds of things, but I really don't want to say too much. These TikTok couple have been the sensation on TikTok recently. And to me, it's not for any good reasons, to be honest. It's not things that are beautiful for people to be rooting about and laughing over. But I also recognize that in our society and in our community, when people are not too well, especially when it has to do with something with the mind. We always overlook it. We try to kind of make the people sound as if they're not, because they have an issue with their brain or whatever, that somehow they're societal misfits or whatever. But this is a very important conversation, and I cannot wait to hear what Ekwamwa has to say. So, without wasting any further time, Ekwamwa, the floor is yours. Welcome. I'm back, and I promise I'm going to behave myself. The floor is yours, honey.
Well, thank you, Sika. I want to say good afternoon to everyone, good evening, or good morning, whichever part of the world you're listening to us today. And we also want to thank you all for joining us. I know we've been like, in Ghana, we say we are Kubalo, right? We do Kubalo. We've not been consistent. But Sika was having an exciting time, spending some time with her family. So that was for a good cause. Please share, please subscribe to Sika's YouTube channel. If you have not already subscribed to Sika's YouTube channel, please do so. And then also, please don't forget to use Sika's code when you're sending money to your friends abroad by using Tap Tap Send and using Sika's code. Okay. Um, Before I really dig into this, one of the things I want all of us to know is that, like, I'm not an expert. Okay, just as a disclaimer, I'm not an expert. I'm just going to be speaking of this based on life experience, based on my own opinion. Okay, it's not a fact. My opinions are not facts. Okay, so I just want to put that disclaimer out there. And also, we're not here to really like to mock anyone or put anybody in a place where they feel like, okay, people are looking down on them or anything. We're really here to draw life lessons. We're here to really educate ourselves. We're here to enlighten ourselves, because this thing called life can really sometimes can drive you into a little rabbit hole that if you don't take time, you will lose who you are. If you don't take time, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you be like, okay, is this really me? Or has something else happened to me? Right? So, this is what we are here really to talk about. Okay. Sika shared this story with me. I had gone back, watched all the interviews between both the couple and the parents and the siblings. And really, there are a few fundamental facts, right? And one of the things is, Sika, maybe we should have talked about, maybe somebody's listening, they've never even heard about this story, right? So do you just want to quickly give a background of the story, maybe for people who have not, maybe never heard about the story?
Sure. So it's about a couple who it looked like the man was a pastor of a church. That's how it started. He started having his ministry in his family home with his mom and the siblings all supporting. An up and coming young guy, doesn't have a lot to his name. and he claimed that he'd been called, and so he was a pastor and he was trying to win souls for Christ. Fair enough. Then it sounds as if this young girl found herself in the church, and her sole motive was to marry this guy. She had it in mind from what the friends and other people said on the interviews with Kofi TV, who I want to give a big thumbs up to for bringing the story to the fore, because there's so much to be learned out of all of this, right? And so I want to give him a big thumbs up for bringing the story up. He also said somebody shared it with him on TikTok, and then he decided that he wanted to get to the bottom of it and understand it. And this is how all of us have come to know what is going on, and all of us have had our own things to say about what we've seen. But for us, as Ekwamwa has said, it's all about the lessons. What can we get out of this? What should we look out for? So anyway, this guy, this woman has this agenda and mindset that she's going to marry this guy at all costs. According to the family, she starts visiting, and then, she brings him drinks, which they believe that something happened in the transferring of the drinks to the guy. He started entertaining her. They were having a relationship. She had 2 children. And then eventually he went to see the family. And so they're married as far as the family are concerned. They've had 2 children, then a third. But then in the course of this whole pastoring, it looks like the man is not very happy, because his understanding of being with Christ is that his ministry will grow. He would be able to set himself up properly, have a thriving business going where he's able to support himself and his family. And from all indications, it looks like they became very hurt and bitter because the ministry didn't take the kind of flight that they were hoping that it would, especially financially. So all this bitterness, they lost 2 of their 3 children, and then things got from bad to worse. In their narration, you kept hearing them talking about the things that they went through and where was God in all of that, and how did he allow all this to happen. Ultimately, they decided that they didn't want to do ministry anymore. They wanted to just be secular people, a couple and all of that. The lady set them up on TikTok, and they started doing all kinds of things. They were into drugs and smoking and drinking and showing all their birthday suits in public and just literally just doing what they wanted. And according to them, when they started doing this and then started farming, their life was suddenly better. They could afford things they could have never afforded when they were with Christ. But now they decided that Christ, excuse my French, was rubbish. And now they wanted to just be secular people and live their lives. Things are now rosy. On the face of it, who gives a toss? Because people can choose to believe or not believe something. You can't force somebody who is a Christian. You and I know people who claim to be Christian, and yet they are very superstitious to the point of which you're asking, so if you really think God is almighty and all powerful, why are you afraid of this? Or why do you believe that? These are very gray areas that I don't like to delve into much, because you can't force somebody to have a particular set of beliefs or another. But the thing that is worrying for me is, one, that they felt that because they chose Christ, that their life would they'll be millionaires overnight. And secondly, the fact that not being with him and farming and living this kind of weird lifestyle where they're eating snakes and human excrement and all kinds of things, it seems a little bit just off course to what normal people would do. So this is where the problem lies. And now they become a sensation because they're almost making out to the point of eating each other's faces on social media and thinking that that is acceptable behavior. These are people who call themselves ministers of the gospel. So in a nutshell, this is what has happened. Their children passed away, apart from one who has now been found. He's also given his own account about what their house used to be like. And as we speak, these people have now become people of question. And so the authorities have had them behind bars whilst they're investigating to see what actually happened to these two other children. If one is alive, is it true that the other two have really passed away? And if yes, where are their mortal remains? Who knows that they passed away? At least in any country that has laws, if any child or human being passes, you have to get a police certificate that actually certified by the coroner that the person has passed away. You need to be given a license to be able to put the mortal remains of whoever it is to rest. None of these don't seem to have happened. So are these imaginary children, or were they real children that they actually had? And these are all things that are being investigated at this point. So Kwamwa, what is your thinking? Because this has blown my mind.
Yeah, this is a story that's really blown my mind. And the most important thing that we all have to think about is that these are things that happens. It doesn't matter which part of the world it is, but it happens, for many, 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 many reasons, right? But one of the things that the first thing that when I started listening to, the first thing that really stuck to my mind is the fact that they kept on mentioning how they never had sufficiency in Christ. So, and one of the things that also stood out to me when Kofi asked him what sort of education he had, he said you only did secondary school, right? So that brings me to this point. When we have a nation, and I don't mean to become political here, I'm talking about everybody, I'm talking to each one of us,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
When we have a nation
mm-hmm.
where our young men and young women do not have a future beyond common high school, then we are in trouble. That is why we see when you go to most African countries, except for Rwanda, that the president has really put regulated churches. You see churches in every other corner. What they are saying is the reality and the experience. If I cannot get a job, I can create a job by starting a ministry. The main ideology behind studying the ministry was really never rooted in who God is or what God was. It was it was rooted in the fact that it was going to be a means to an end. And all of this is because of poverty. You cannot say I'm going to serve God so that I can get out of poverty. Because one of the things that we all should know that even Jesus, when he called his disciples, each one of them already had a job. Luke was a doctor. You know, Peter and the brothers they were fishermen. All of them had their own job that they were doing. Elisha was tending to his flocks when God called him, or when the prophet called him to follow him, right? We look at somebody like Moses. Moses was trained in Egyptian doctrine. He was a very learned man. He was a mathematician. So all of the people, if you really want to know, if you want, don't allow anyone to deceive you. All the great men and women that we hear about in the Bible, Deborah, she was a judge. She was a learned woman. Esther was trained by her cousin Mordecai. So, God, you cannot just get up and say, oh, I'm going to be in ministry because I don't have a job. You're going to end up like them. You're going to be frustrated because you don't have the skills, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the ground to stand on. The Bible says that Jesus said, you said, well, you should do business till I come, right? He told them to go and what? Be fishers of men, but at the same time, he also told them to go to do business till he comes. So if you don't do business, how are you supposed to get money? So you cannot say, oh, because God has called me, so I will not look for a job. You need to look for a job. You need to have a job because as a man, if you have a family, you get married. Ministry is not a means to an end. Ministry is not what is going to put food on your table. You need
Mm.
to have what we call handwork, something you can do with your hand, right? But I also understand their plight because most young men in Africa, they are graduating school, they're finishing university, some of them have masters, and they still don't have a job. Even if they have a job, it's not even a job that propels them, a job that causes them to be able to, you know, explode or to be creative, to be able to be innovative, to become great. As a
Mm-hmm.
result, we have a lot of frustrated young men and women walking around and doing many unnecessary things to get unnecessary attention, right? So the story boils down to poverty. How can we elevate poverty in our lives? How can we know and understand that if we want to go into ministry, that we equip ourselves? We make sure your wife is working or your wife has something that she's doing, right? To support you. As a man, I've heard story of women that, you know, the man will say, oh, I'm going to I'm a pastor, I'm starting my ministry. And Monday to Friday, he will stay home doing prayer and fasting. Why are you staying home Monday to Friday to do prayer and fasting? Would manna fall down from heaven? Right? So it's important that we really use this as opportunity to really also dissect some of these social norms that is plaguing our society. You
Mm.
know, coming abroad, some of them come abroad and do the same thing. Oh, I'm in ministry and then you don't work. No, you need to go get a job. You need a job because you have bills to pay, you have children to take care of. You need to, even if you don't get it, you need to have something. Your wife needs to have something, right? The tithe and offering is not what's going to sustain you. Look at what happened in the pandemic. Churches were closed. Some people lost their jobs. If somebody doesn't have a job, will they have money now to come and now give it to you as offering,
Mm.
right? Or even if they people don't know, and now look at how things are. If you go to a grocery store now, if you go and spend $300, you will not even know what you bought. Just
That's
some
true.
small little grocery, right? So now you have given up work and you're staying home in the name of ministry, and then you're saying that, oh, I'm working for God. Yes, there's nothing wrong with working for God, but you need to use wisdom, right? If not, you're gonna end up being frustrated, right? Because when we see that when he encountered this woman, she gave him a little taste of some sort of good life, right? And then now the temptation now starts because you have not equipped yourself. You are not prepared. Some of us, we are not ready for ministry to be ourselves. We have to go and submit under some a matured ministry instead of us to start on our own, right? And these are some of the things that if we allow yourself and you're not submitting to an authority that has been tried, right? You become an easy prey. And I believe this is what happened to him, right? And then one of the other things I want to say, you have to make sure this thing called marriage, it can make you or it can break you, right? So we all have to use wisdom, right? She said several times that me, I was in the world. I was in the world, right? And according to his sister, they warned him and told him that, hey, she's in the world, right? So don't get close, right? And then somehow he thought that he can change somebody. One of the things that we all have to know is that nobody can change anybody. The only person who can change somebody is God. It's only God that can turn the heart of a man, right? So he put himself out there
mm.
and tried to change her. And then now what happened? She takes him for where he was and brings him out to the world, right? This world that we live in, the way we attract relationship, friendship that we make, that people we hang out with.
Mm. I'm not sure what's happened, but Ikuamwa seems to have been frozen all of a sudden. I hope she comes back. But guys, yes, absolutely what she's saying is a gazillion percent correct. And it's just a sad state of affairs. The other thing that I think she was about to highlight, which I would talk about right now, is that you can almost tell that um, this young man didn't have the money. The means to the end was actually coming from this young woman. She was the person that had the money, even though the question remains, where was the money coming from? Because this was a young lady who was not working. So where was the funds that were being used to have the fun coming from? And you can tell that this woman, through the pendency of their marriage, because this guy wasn't working, she wasn't working, but she had the money. So a lot of the things that they've been doing, I presume the monies that have gone into building this house that they're now living in, the monies that have gone into the car that this pastor is now driving and so excited about, all came from the wife or the woman. But isn't this a lot of the things that we see a lot of the times? Is that sometimes people start getting bitter about how this whole ministry or whatever it is because the people who go into ministry themselves, as my sister was saying, don't have a life of their own or anything that they can stand on, any legs to physically stand on their own. A lot of the times it is their spouses, the women, that are ably and abating and paying and sending the monies and investing into the future of a ministry that will one day pick up and become a cash cow. A lot of people are getting into ministry not because they love the Lord and they want to do the Lord's bidding and they want to get people and win souls for Christ. No. Ministry seems to have become the order of the day. If you want to get rich, if you want to make money off the back of other people, the ministry is the way to do it. Very sad, very unfortunate, but this is factual. But what is absolutely worrying is this whole thing about children. That just makes my heart break into several pieces because this is a couple that, from their own narration, were blessed with children. 3 of them, to be precise. So what happened to these children? Ekuamwa is back. I'll hand over the microphone to her and she can continue with what she wanted to say.
Sorry, everyone. Yes. So, what I want to say really is if you want to join or start a ministry and not end up being frustrated, the first thing you want to do, number one, is make sure that other than the ministry, you have another source of income.
Mm-hmm.
As a pastor, you can do many things as well. You can work full time. You just need to find a way to balance it until your ministry is solid enough to say that, okay, now my ministry can start paying me, right? And then the other thing I was really talking about, really, really passionate about is that don't try to change anybody. Nobody can be changed. You see women, they marry men. Oh, this one, if I marry him, sometimes our parents will be like, oh, when you have children, they will change, right? No, you are not. You are not. You are not God, right? So don't go and be doing prayer and fasting for someone's child. You are unequally yoked. They were unequally yoked. She herself said it. I used to smoke. I used to drink. I used to do all these things before I came into the church, right? You are a young man. You've not even seen anything in this world, right? You're just starting your ministry. Why would you want to be unequally yoked with someone who, number one, is not grounded in the faith, who, number two, is not even self sufficient enough, right? She's hustling on the street. She herself, she's a hustler, right? And you two, you don't even have, you're not from a very solid background where you have access to money. Because I believe there was access to money, he would have continued his education beyond where he was, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's important that all of these things are well noted.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be unequally yoked with anybody. Don't try to change anybody. Stay in your lane, okay? Stay in your lane because when we are talking about this, even though they were pastors, we're also talking about every one of us, right? In your destiny, the people you surround yourself with. The Bible says, blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the ungodly, nor sit in the seat of the scornful. The scornful. You don't want to sit where you don't belong.
Mm.
You don't want to be around people who will bring you down, who will lead you astray, right? So it's important that we understand these lessons where this lady, this guy married this woman, and then he moved from not non-smoker to now a smoker to now, smoking and showing off to the whole world, right? I'm not saying people have choices, people can make personal choices. I have nothing against that, right? But we want to talk about the transformation, right? And these things happen. Somebody will meet somebody, you meet the person, the person is addicted to, you know, to drugs. And then you say, oh, I'm going to change the person. You cannot change anybody, right? So it's important we are teaching all these things. Right now in the Western world, there's an opioid crisis, right? So all these things are things that are happening. Children are overdosing. Last time I heard, a 12-year-old child here in Canada overdosed, 12 years old, right? So these are all life lessons for all of us. Let's be careful. Let's watch around those who our children are playing with. Let's watch around those we expose ourselves with and to, right? Because they can make us or they can break us, right? And we see the outcome for this man, right? So that is what I wanted to say for the very second point. And the third thing, mental health is real. Mental health is real, okay? Especially postpartum depression. I see a lot of our men, they tend to dismiss their wives, okay? If you're a man, you're listening to me. Your wife, you met her, she's pretty, she likes to take good care of herself. All of a sudden, she had one child, and then all you see is her hair is unkept. She doesn't take good care of herself. She's all over the place. It's not a time for you to shame her. It's not a time for you to hoot at her. It's not a time for you to say, why are you looking like this? Why are you look? No. It's time for you to sit down and find out what is going on with her. Most women at some point in their life after childbirth will be going through postpartum depression,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes if it becomes chronic, it leads to some of these behaviors some of these people are exhibiting. Especially if truly, truly there was some sort of suffering and loss of the child. And I don't know, she was talking somehow, but I don't know whether she was trying to say one of the children is had some sort of challenge, medical challenge. I don't know. I couldn't really make that out, right? But if that is the case, that will even increase the ability, right? Because I don't know whether I was not listening, understanding her trip properly, but it looked like the
Yeah, there
child
were two
was,
children. Two of them
yes,
were not well. They had
yes,
challenges.
yes,
Yes.
yes. So the way she was saying it, so in such situation, that is not time for family isolation,
Mm.
right? This is not time for family to abandon and isolate. Because sometimes when people are going through such things, they want everybody to be away from them. But you, as a family unit, you need to bring support. You need to surround them with their needs that they need because it's just normal that they don't want to let you in, right? But it also doesn't mean that you also have to not, okay, if they don't want to talk to me, they don't want to me to be around, then okay, I don't want to be around either, right? This is the time for you to sit down and say, hey, right, what can I do? What help can I offer to help my family member overcome this challenge, right? Men, pay attention to your wives after they have children because when you have a child, it changes the dynamics of your body, it changes the way you feel about yourself, even the whole experience, right, of having childbirth. Some women, you're having a child, and then as a grown woman, you do number two whilst having child, like in front of five of a couple of people. Some people, it's okay. Some people, that could be a huge challenge for them, right? Somebody you're having a child, and then your child, the whole thing just tears down, 10-degree tear, right? How do you manage your body after that? It's a lot, right? So mental health is real, we all need to be aware that mental health is real. We need to make sure we are observant to the people around us when they are not themselves. You know, let us reach out to them. Let us get them help because, especially if she was having children who were facing some sort of challenge, right? That alone now take on carrying on ministry on top of your head, right? We see pastors, who have gone into depression because they're praying for people to have children and their wives cannot conceive, right? They fall into frustration and depression. How come I'm praying every day? I'm dedicating people's children. I pray for this one. They kept us. I pray for me, and so that my husband and I could have children. And then boom, you get pregnant. You have children. You and they've been praying today for 10 years, no children, right? They're just human, right? So you want to be sure we understand mental health is real. And I'll just pause this now.
So, Ekuamwa, one of the things that was strange and which I don't understand, I was really wanting you to shed more light on is that the guy I can understand, he doesn't look to come from a very affluent family. You could tell from the conversations with the mom and the sister that they were just an ordinary family. The mom had lost the dad. According to her, this son was the one that looked the most like her deceased husband. And so she loved him exceptionally because he reminded her of the deceased husband, right? The other issue for me, though, is that it would appear that even though the woman did not have a job, so she didn't have a job, um, that she was the one that had money because somewhere in the part of the series, the guy was admitting to the fact that it was the woman who gave him 45,000 Ghana cedis to buy that car, that red car that they showed. So where did the money come from? The woman seems to have more money than he did. So where did that money come from? Yeah.
Well, you know what, Sika? That is where let's go back, right? She also said multiple times when they were in the church, there was no money, right? When they left, the money came, right? And this goes back to my conversation of people not being unequally yoked, right? And this is one of those things that when I look at this, I see this in two dimensions, right? Both the physical and the spiritual dimension, right? So who knows? Now she's in a secular world. She can do anything else for money. There is no restrictions on how she can make money, right? So how she got that money could be any means possible, right? And that is the fact, right? Because someone who knew already how to hustle in the world, right? Now that she's out of the church, she said, somebody saw me and called me Sofa Mami. I told the person, don't call me Sofa Mami. I'm not Sofa Mami anymore. She doesn't want to carry that on her. That way, nobody will say, oh, this is the pastor's wife. This is what she's doing. So with that money, how she got it, only God knows. But one thing is that now she doesn't have any limitation. She saw it as a way to that keeps her constrained, that she couldn't do the things that she wants to do, right? And that goes back to the fact that if she was in the world before, she talked about smoking, she talked about drinking, she talked about clubbing. So all those things that she was doing, how was she doing it? You see what I mean? Because if she had said, oh, when I was in the world, I was working at the bank, or I was working here, I was doing those things, she didn't mention any of that. All she talked about was how she would drink, how she would smoke. So I'm sure she was clubbing, and we all know some of the things that goes on there. So where she got that money from, it's open to anything. But one thing is for sure, now she doesn't have any constraints as to how she makes money, right? Now, the way she can make money in a way where nobody can judge her, Nobody can look down on her. Nobody can disrespect her, or nobody can say, this is Sofu Mami. Sofu Mami, you can't do this. As a pastor's wife, you can't do this. Because, and this also goes down to this. Have we as a society put some sort of constraints, restrictions, or stigma on people that they feel that when they're in the ministry, they cannot do anything else except to be praying, fasting, and reading the Bible, right? Is that what we have done? So this also brings us to how we also need to question ourselves. What have we also done to contribute to this sort of behavior
Mm,
and this sort of stigma,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm.
That makes that's making them feel this way.
Understood. The other issue I have as well is this whole thing about the children, because I don't, for the life of me, understand, and I know that a lot of it has to do with mental health issues as well. But the thing that I'm struggling with is, okay, so you were in the church and there was no money. You got upset, you're hurt, you've left the church. Now somehow in the world you seem to be having better outcomes, at least financially. You would think that this will actually tell on them, like they will be living it large and live it big. But they were just wearing these, I don't know whether it was the camera, but like these oversized clothes that especially she was wearing. There's a TikTok video that a lot of people have actually commented on where it's like she's the one with the money, but she's wearing, for want of a better word, knickers that are so big for her that she has to use needle and thread to take them in just so that it can fit. And so if they've had enough money to be able to put up this place that they seem to be living in, which is comfortable enough for them to do all the things that they're trending on social media. You would think people who have money will want to live large and look a lot better, like look the part. Do you know what I mean? Like people who are in the world don't look tattered and like that, right? Yeah.
I think they are coming. It's a process, but that also really, I think it's more got to do with the inner struggles, right? The things that they're actually struggling with. Because you remember, I don't know if you saw the scene where Kofi takes her, she was showing the chicken coop, and then she talks about how, the eagle comes and, is it the eagle or the hawk? She
Yes.
used to, it comes and then take the bird. So then she just got upset one day and she killed all the birds, right? Like, so there is also, I think there's also trauma there, right? There's also trauma um, that is being shown, and when you are one thing for sure is that when everything is not all right, or when everything is not 100%, it's manifest in different forms, right? And the way they're putting themselves together could be another way that they are showing, the cry for help, right? So that that happens, right? And sometimes you can see there are rich people there are people who have so much money, but they prefer to stay on the streets, right? Not every homeless guy is poor, right? They're just not there enough to know that these are the things that is the right thing to do,
Mm,
right? I'll
mm.
tell you a story of a guy, he has a beautiful condo. The parent inherited a beautiful condo from the parents. The dad owned a company and everything. But because of addiction, right, he was on the streets. If you see him on the streets, you think that, you know, he's nobody, right? But this is someone, the parents have bought him a condo. They have everything they have for him. He's a heir to a company, a multi-million-dollar company. But what? Because of addiction. And that happens all the time,
Mm.
right? Joyce Meyer talks about her brother, right? That, because of abuse that they suffered during childhood, led him to be addicted, suffer so many addictions, and then he ended up on the street. They tried to clean him up multiple times, but then it's still to no avail. So eventually One day they called them that he's been found in an abandoned building, and then he was no more, right? These are realities. These are things that are happening to people that we know. They are happening in our neighborhoods. So this is not something that we should make a mockery of. And honestly, I feel like, you know, her not having something stable to stand on, and then not having, I would say, something normal to do, her to marrying this man, and then this man also not really having anything strong to stand on, together combined with maybe their first child, maybe when they have the child having some sort of challenges, us really, and then having the second one possibly having some sort of challenges, right? Led to some the down spiral of, and who knows, they probably had these children back to back to back, because when I listened to the story of the little one, he said he was 8, and then she said they were married for 12, almost 12 years, right? So if the last one is 8, that means she had them back to back to back to back. That itself is a huge trigger for postpartum depression, right? So honestly, that's what I think, right? But I mean, we have the experts who can um, really
Yeah.
know what is really going on when it comes to how they put themselves together. But all these things are what, they're common, they happen, right? The most important thing is that we as a society, we need to stop putting stigma. We need to support our women. We need to support our community. We need to find ways whereby our young men, our young women don't feel like ministry is the way out, right? You go to Africa, there's churches in every corner. Ghana, church every corner. You go to Nigeria, the same thing. Every kiosk, every classroom. The classrooms are falling apart, but there's tambourine and everybody else, you know, praise, starting the church there. And some of them, they're not genuine. They're not genuine because they're looking for money. That's why you go and they tell you all this sweet nonsense. This one is a wizard. That one is a witch. It's because of this one that you are not doing this. It's because of this one that you are suffering, right? Because they know that if they tell you these things, you will give them money. And because if they tell people to genuinely come and give tithes and offering, people will not. But if you whisper sweet nonsense into their ear, like, Adwa is doing you at night, you accepted your auntie. That's why your auntie, now you're suffering because the auntie went to go see this so person, and then your auntie has turned your destiny, changed your destiny with this one, right? All of these things are the reason why some of these pastors are out there doing this. And I believe that for him, he didn't catch on to the trick.
Mm.
He didn't catch on to the trick, so he was not cashing in, right? And hence some of their frustration. If you really want to preach genuinely the word of God, be ready to lose church members. That is just the truth. That is just the truth. And I bet you probably that's what he was doing. And in the
Mm.
end, what happened? Poverty drive him into a place that he himself does not know. If you are a pastor listening to us or you're aspiring to be, before you take on that journey, you really need to think about, what will I do for daily bread to take care of my family,
Mm-hmm.
right? Luke was a doctor. He was not a man without a job. He was a man with a job before God called him. What is your job before God called you?
Mm. This is a big one because it's just become the norm that anybody who wants to get rich and gets rich quick, the quickest way to do it is through ministry. It's become a running joke actually, amongst a lot of people. Even in my own family, it's a running joke that this person says, "Oh, because I'm very charismatic, I will just be the pastor." Somebody says, "Oh, I'm interested in managing the financial aspects of the whole thing so that I can dip my hand farthest into the coffers and whatever." And it's a running joke in a lot of family, settings. I was so happy that you touched on something I was about to talk about, which is the whole stigmatization that is associated with mental health. People think that when we talk about mental health, it must mean that people run out wild, take their clothes off, and show their, you know, their best bits lying all over the place. And those are the only people that have mental health issues. Forgetting that a lot of the times, the people who are suffering could be very well dressed. They could be your people that you work with on a daily basis. They come to work, they're high performers, they're laughing, they're giggling. Everything seems fine on the face of it. But these are the people that are suffering. The fact that they look good and look the part does not mean that they don't have mental health issues. As somebody who has had a relationship, a close relationship with a family member who was suffering with mental health issues, but did a very good job of covering it up. Believe you me, they are sometimes the highest performers in society. Your lawyers, your doctors, your teachers, your people in military, they're all dressed all ceremoniously and they look flamboyant. But in their heart of hearts, they are suffering. And nobody believes them because they always shine up. They always come out dressed and looking good. So nobody believes them when they are struggling. The struggle is real in our community. And it's about time we normalize the conversation about mental health. Normalize it. Just like you have a tummy ache, there can be chemical imbalances in your brain as a result of trauma that you've been through. People go to the war front, they see all kinds of things, people's body parts, all kinds of things lying around. Who would not be traumatized by this? You go to have a child, that's my sister was sharing, and all kinds of things happen. Somebody I know has become permanently paralyzed just from having one child. One child that this woman wanted to have has resulted her in a wheelchair. So beautiful woman. But this is her lot. Just because she wanted to have children. She was advised not to do it, but she just wanted to have a child. And that's her lot. How do you even process that? How do you live a life after that? It's hard work. And sometimes it's not only our women who suffer with this whole postpartum depression thing. It's just that our men are not taught to express emotions. A man crying in our community is seen as a sign of a weakness, as if they're not human beings. They're supposed to be robotic and not express themselves. And we say stupid things like, a man must not cry. What kind of bollocks is that? But that's what we do. So our men are taught to, on the one hand, we all want to marry romantic, loving men who express themselves and prove to you that they love you. How are they going to do that? When in the one frame of mind, you're saying, don't express yourself, especially if it's crying. We don't want to know. But you want the people to express feelings to you. That can only be done if we normalize people's emotions, identify them for what they are. That is what separates us from robots. Is that human beings have genuine feelings. We feel things, right? And express those feelings openly without being in any judgment by anybody. And until we as a community we begin to do these things honestly and frankly, take them on and do them, we'll continue to have things like this. Yeah, this is the story that's catchy and we're all talking about it. But as my sister says, and I agree with her, there's so many more out there. Maybe it just hasn't hit the headlines because whoever it is or they are not on social media. But there's so many other people who are disappointed for the very same reason. Now, the last thing that I wanted us to touch on, quite apart from the children, it seems that two of them were probably not, I don't want to use the word abnormal, but they had challenges. They were challenged children. They had difficulties with growing, with learning, or whatever. That was an issue. Now, the third point that I wanted to raise, though, was with their last child. I don't know whether he also has any mental health or any growing up learning disability or whatever, right? But the point that I'm trying to make here is that even with this child, If what the kid is saying is true, which I am tempted to believe, what does the child have to gain by telling Porky's? Is that the child said that he had been starved, wasn't fed. It's smelling all of neglect. If out of your three kids have not are not here with us anymore, common sense tells me that the one that you will shield and hold on to with everything and fight for that child to survive. But it is sounding as if they even think that this child has some spirits in him that is making him say things that are untrue. All these things about them eating human excrement and all of this is coming from the child, which I am tempted to believe. I don't see why a child would tell such kind of lies about the parents. So this child is also traumatized too and will need a lot of rehabilitation to fix him and his mind right. At least we need to make the effort that has happened. And I'm grateful that social welfare got involved and the child is hopefully in a safe space. But having worked hand in hand with people that I have schooled with, my friends for long standing years, that have tried to do humanitarian work in Ghana, I know that there is always the willingness to help, but resources are always scanty. Ghana's social welfare is on its knees. That's God's honest truth. I have had first-hand experiences. There's so many children that are lying in the streets of Accra, Kumasi, name it. And all kinds of horrendous things happen to these children. We salvage them, we take them to the social welfare, and the next question they're asking you is, we don't even know, we don't have enough food to even feed them for 3 days. So before long, they don't have any choice. They kick them back on the streets and they're back out there. All kinds of horrendous things happen to these children. They're easy prey for people to take advantage of physically, sexually. They use them for juju, and all kinds of things happen on the streets. And so, sometimes when I say these things about us thinking more strategically when we're deciding to raise families, some people take offense. But to me, it is more sadder to see a child that never asked to be born go through hell than to see parents that just think that, oh, all you have to do is have the child, and God will somehow miraculously look after the child once you've had them, without actually seriously thinking about what provisions have I made. Because you and I live in a West where the Obroni don't make those decisions just willy nilly. They have been taught and psyched up to understand that if you go near a woman and you do mama and papa, pregnancy is what results. And it costs money. So if you're not prepared to do it, then you either stay away, or if you must, then you approach cautiously, wearing all the equipment and apparatus that you need to have on to make sure that the child does not, come out of the whole thing. And this was something I wanted you to touch on as we wound up here to leave this conversation where it is now.
Well, one of the things I want to touch on, Sika, is that when we hear that 8-year-old talk, we could like really sense the trauma in the way he has that conversation, right? And sometimes when people have gone through a traumatic event, it stops them from doing many things. Because remember, the lady asked him, is he in school? And he said he has stopped school, right? Obviously, it all tells that either the parents did not take him to school, or they were like, and that goes back. The malnutrition, it happens here too, where when people are going through this kind of situation, they don't even remember that they have children, that they had to feed them, right? Because you yourself, you're not even there for you to be able to think about somebody else, right? So that for sure it's possible, right? Some of the things that he said, and usually when you study child psychology, they tend to mess up a lot of things too, right? So they're going to need an expert. That child is going to need a lot of therapy, a lot of therapy. And unfortunately, we do have a system that doesn't work. Nothing works in that system, right? And people don't have empathy, right? Because if you have empathy and you are responsible for something, you're going to make sure the thing works, right? Because there's scarcity. Why do we have scarcity in the system? And really, so let's go back to, you know, the fundamentals, right? Our young men, our young women in Africa need to be trained and equipped for the life of the next generation.
Mm.
It's like the system is just there and allowing them just to do whatever. They're just setting them out to fail right from the beginning. They're setting them out so that if your parents don't have means or they're not able to attain means, then you're gonna be at the bottom forever. Because it's a very hard struggle in the social mobility system, right? So this young man, there's if God care does not take him, he's not going to be any different from his parents, right? He's not going to be any different from his parents because who is going to take charge? Who
Mm.
is going to be responsible for this child?
Mm.
Who is going through such traumatic experience? It's some of the things that he's saying. Like me, I was sick to my stomach, sick to my stomach. But this is his reality. And you know what? He might go and tell this story to somebody else, and somebody will say that, oh, but me, I've not even eaten for 1 week. So what are you talking about? Right? So it is the reality. And even if you go back, you remember they themselves they say they are down slope. The house is on down slope. So if it rains, the whole place will be flooded. When the place is flooded, where are they going to stay? This is the acceptance they have accepted to live in such condition with children. If it rains with such children, what would happen? They can easily get drowned. Like the whole thing, it's it's scary. It's really pretty scary. And really going back to how um most people in the Western world think. Before you have a child, you have to make sure that you are able to equip yourself to take care of that child. You can't just have a child with just for the sake of having one, right? But at the same time, we go back. If you don't have a skill, you don't have nobody. I know I'm not the kind of person that believes that everybody must attain, her PhD or get masters or get a degree. I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person that believes that all of us, we have something that we can offer to society.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's pie that you have to bake, whether it is starting your own laundry business,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is sewing, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's braiding hair,
Mm.
whether it is plumbing, whether it's carpentry, whether it's designing, whether it is starting your own little daycare to take care of people's children, right? Your own nanny business. It's because we don't patronize, we don't commit, and we are not dedicated to the things that we want to do, right? So therefore, we don't feel like we feel like we are inadequate, we are nothing, right? So we need to find a way where we don't only elevate people who have degrees, but we also elevate our market women.
Mm.
We elevate our tailors who are
Mm.
sewing clothes, so people can see that, okay, if my mom and dad doesn't have money for me to go to university, I can also sew. And you know what? People can wear my clothes. They can show it off. And then people can also start thinking that me too, as a seamstress, I am somebody, right? I don't need to go to a school of design or fashion design for somebody to wear my clothes to feel like, okay, me too, I've arrived. No. There are so many people who are talented seamstress out there that we can patronize.
especially if you're a celebrity, you should try your best. That local woman that sews on your streets, every now and then choose to wear their clothes to one of the events. It doesn't have to be brand name all the time or whatever. Let's find ways to promote these soft skills, these skills that people are exhibiting. Your local hairdresser, you go there, patronize them, show them on your social media. Say, oh, I went to my neighborhood. This woman, she does hair. You can go and wash your hair. You can go and put your hair in rollers. Let them also feel that the job they are doing, it's also something that society glorifies, right? We don't want them to feel like if you have speaking good grammar, or you are the one that I wish, wish. Look at the other lady that she cooked for how many hours? 3 days, right? Everybody was excited about that. We can do that. There are women who are selling kenke on the street. There are masses of people who are buying kenke from them. We can patronize them. Let's take the things, the small engines that make the country run. Let's take them, let's put them on a platter, let's elevate them so that young women, young men can say that, okay, I can also sell kenke, package it well. And then people can patronize me, and people can respect me as a kenke seller. People can respect me as someone who fry yam, somebody who roast plantain, someone who sells coconut water, coconut on the streets, right? If they see that we are also elevating them and we are patronizing them, they will not feel ashamed. They will see it as a job that
Mm,
is of dignity and of respect. They're
mm,
not going to start doing all these fake pastors around who are
mm.
destroying people's marriages, people's homes, destroying people's destinies. We don't want a nation that is being destroyed because people are selling what people cannot buy.
Mm, mm. You made a really strong point there. Because this was a conversation I was having with someone who told me that he doesn't understand. It's a man, actually. He said to me, he doesn't understand how in Ghana, the only things we seem to be talking a lot about and giving airtime to young women who are selling their bodies and
Yep.
showing everything, leaving nothing to be desired. Young men who are make it, fake it till you make it. The money, we don't even ask where the money is coming from, right? Those are the sorts of people that are being promoted. But your next door neighbor whose child just came out of secondary school, maybe did vocational skills and has now started baking, that young girl that is trying to start her own palm oil business, whatever it is, we don't promote those people. We don't even talk about them, but we are always perpetually talking about this fake it till you make it life, all these young women that people are portraying out there, that rich men have bought houses and all kinds of things for. Those are the things we love to spend airtime and give airtime to talking about, to the detriment of the people that are going and grinding hard. And because grinding doesn't seem to be given any flamboyance or any recognition, how many people want to hustle? How many people want to hustle? And this is very sad because there are many young men like this young man who are doing exactly the same thing that he's done. Some people have made it, some people have cut corners, they've got behind the churches, all kinds of funny things going on. So, on the face of it, Kofi is making money, Yao has made money, Kwesi has made money. So, therefore, if Kweku also gets out there wanting to make money, he also must make the money. Church business is not about riches. It's not about, it's nothing to do with that at all. But sadly, this is all we're portraying. Very sad state of affairs. If this young woman had her own trade, I don't even know what part of school she finished. There was somebody on social media claiming to be her classmate. Did she finish high school? Did she go to any vocation? Oh yeah, the mom said that she had gone to learn how to do hair, but she only lasted 3 months and then she quit. On one of the videos, I actually heard that. Yeah, that she quit. So as I'm saying, nobody is putting these things out there that's making it attractive enough There's this woman in Ghana called Auntie Alice. I don't know if you know her, but she braids hair, and she's from the north. She started very small in her own veterinary. I think her husband worked in the veterinary or whatever, and she started from the just from the back of the house. Now she has a whole thing. My sister was telling me that you can go to her house. She can dispatch people to your house to come and do your hair, and you pay them. She has a whole thing going. I think Ohiniri Giftianti does her hair with her because she's always
So
talking about her.
we
You know?
should be having those women, talking to them so young girls can see that there's life beyond the flamboyance. There's life because she was probably looking at learning that 3 months and say, this one, why would I be learning this? That Benny and Nana Menyesika, Makoto me jots, buy this, buy that, right? She wants to live the life. She doesn't want to be humble enough to learn, right? But I said, it goes on to say, whatever you lift up in society, that is what people look at, right? You see, and if you undermine or diminish or dismiss something, then people are not going to patronize it, right? Because now everybody wants to be the girlfriend of a politician, girlfriend of a pastor, and all the boys want to be pastors, right? Because that's the easy way out. But with that, if you don't know how those pastors are making it, you go in there and you'll be frustrated, right? You go in there and you'll be frustrated. Yet there are so many things that people can do to earn a living, right? My grandmother brought me up. My grandmother had a bakery. We every day we're baking bread, sending it around to people. That is what the business that she did for a very long time. Some of my aunts that stayed were her cousins and nieces that stayed with her. They also learned bread. In fact, one of my aunties, when she left my grandmother and she got married, bread was what she was doing, right? Bakery is what she was doing. When she got married, now the husband built bakery for her, and that's all she did, right? So unless we as a society start talking about those who have are girlfriends of Mahama or Kufuor or whoever, and talk about how young girls could feel empowered. When we start talking about the ones who are shaking their every part of theirs on TikTok, or those who are out there, all they do is just cause commotion on social media, and we portray the women who are working hard and the young men who are working hard. Last time I was having a conversation. The first time I went to Nigeria in 2006, the salon that I went to go do my hair was owned by a man. It was
Mm-hmm.
a man that braided my hair.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to Lagos, there's so many salons that are owned by men. So as a young man, you can also do something for yourself. Don't go and start up a church. Do you know how much demons can attack you? They will send their Jezebels against you. Don't say, oh, me, I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. Go and test the devil. Even Jesus himself, he didn't go test the devil. He was walking his own way, and the devil came to tempt him. Walk your own way, and then you have to make sure you are steadfast. You need to humble yourself and go under a spiritual authority that has gone through the trials of time. You can't just start and start your own, because if not, they're Jezebels. Look at Samson. Delilah came, and then Samson's ministry was fall apart, right? I'm not saying someone is Delilah, but there are so many Delilahs out there. Whether
Mm-hmm.
they are men Delilahs or women Delilahs, they are all over the world. So
Mm.
if you want to be a person of purpose, a person of destiny, if you want to have good, sound mental health, you also need to make sure that you don't put yourself out there, right?
Mm.
Lastly, please, I encourage everyone. If you're a mom, you're a dad, you're a young woman, you're a young man, You need to empower yourself. You need to go and learn something. You need to have something that you are able to buy food to feed yourself. Something you can do, right? Don't depend on anybody. Don't think that you're gonna start someday a church. Church is not business. That's why if we start seeing the statistics, you'll be shocked. Most of them they close down. If you don't close down, they go and do many things. That's why we see that if you take your time and watch some of these churches, you'll be like, now this one, what's the pastor even preaching? Is this even the word of God? Is this even a church? Right? Because everybody wants to make some fast money, fast cash. If not, you're going to be what? Frustrated.
The last point that I want to make, though, before we end this here, is that we talked a lot about how everybody thinks that having a church is the way to go. That's the way to make money. But then if we go to the demand and supply thing, you are a supply chain specialist here. If there was nobody buying into this whole ideology of I need you to tell me about my destiny. I want you to tell me what is going to happen to me. I want you to tell me what you've seen. None of this to me will be happening. We have become a people who claim on the one hand that we love the Lord, we are Christian, we pray, and we do all of this. And then we shoot our own selves in the foot in our very attitudes by being very superstitious. I have seen some very serious superstitious Christians. I'm not here to say I'm the best Christian in the world. Maybe, hey, somebody may even say I'm no Christian anyway. But who is a Christian? Somebody who wants to follow the lifestyle of Christ himself. None of us are perfect. We've all come with our own baggages, and we are all just hustling to be better people where we're at. But the problem is that we've become a generation that want to know about, hey, so what's going to happen 10 years from now? So somebody will tell you a lie that they can see what you can't see. When God was coming to talk to other people about your destiny, you were sitting there. He couldn't come and tell you yourself about your own destiny and what is happening to it. But he had to go and tell some man that you've never seen before somewhere, that is your great-grandfather's auntie's uncle's brother, that is wanting to change your destiny, and you believe it. Some of us want to be told. It's not that the pastors are making up stories. We actually want to hear it, that they're telling us that our mom is a witch. Your father's sister, he doesn't want to see you make it. And we like those juicy things. And so, hey, demand and supply. The demand to be lied to is available. So they will also tell you, and you will pay them to tell you. Right? If we can only just be, look, when the Catholic Church, Methodist Church, and a few charismatic churches were there, this was nothing. Everybody just got up on a Sunday and went to the church. Anglican, Presby, Methodist. When I was growing up, that's all I knew. In the last 20, 25 years, there's everything you can think of is a church, a name of a church. And so it's like we are calling ourselves Christians, but we are afraid Christians that want to only go ahead in this life based on what somebody is telling you about some destiny they claim to have seen. How your mom, your own mother who gave birth to you, she sat down and fed you till you are now 50 something. And in your 50s, it's now that your mom wants to eat you. It doesn't make any sense to the human mind. But that's what we believe.
But you know that this is actually biblical. That the Bible says that in the last days, that people will want to hear the tickling of their ears. They want to hear. And one of the things I always tell people that in the Bible, the disciples were preaching, and then there was a woman who was crying out and saying, "Oh, you see these men? They are servants of the Most High God." Right? And the woman kept saying all of these things. And the Bible said the disciples turned and they cast out that demon from her. Right? And there were people who were making money off her. And because of that, they reported these disciples to the king and the high priest, and
they were what? They were flogged. So this is not something that is new. It is something that is of old.
Mm.
And things always recycle themselves. But one of the things that, if you're a Christian, you're listening to me, the Bible says that we should not conform to the things of this world, but we need to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. Our minds needs to be renewed. We don't need to conform. We don't need to follow what people in the world are doing. They are the people who want to know their future. They are the people who want to do all of these things. But God has already said that what He has, the plans that He has for you, they are of good, to give you a hope and to give you an expected end. If God has already made that promise to you and you believe in the word of God, why are you going around? Me, I call it church prostitution, right? That's what I call it, honestly. I've always called it church prostitution because you are going around and in the end you pick so much demons because you don't know these. The Bible says we should test our spirits. You've not tested these spirits, and you're moving from A to B to Z to Z, and at the end of the day, when your whole world come crumbling down and you've made so many bad choices, then you turn into your old grandmother or your old mother and start calling her names. Well, she was not there when you were making those bad choices. When, as a man, you were carrying 350 different women. Or when, as a woman, you were just opening up to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Right? So now your life has come to a standstill. Right? And then now you want to blame people for your misfortune. No, you have to make sure that you fill yourself with wisdom, understanding. You need to make sure you have a teachable spirit so that you learn from your mistakes. Don't be jumping from one church to the other, right? Some of you women, you've not been able to conceive. Well, when was the last time you went to go see a doctor to check
Mm.
yourself?
Mm.
Well, have you taken advantage? Have you asked the doctor about, other options for you?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a hormonal boost, maybe IVF. Even sometimes some of you need to do surrogacy, right? You need to make sure that God has given people wisdom. The
Mm.
doctors, don't forget, Luke was a doctor, right? Even Jesus knew that in order for his ministry to be complete, he needed a doctor on there, right? So don't sit around, cry and mope around, and jump from one pastor to the other. Some of
Mm.
your problems, you need to go see a doctor. Some of them, you need to go
Mm.
and see a shrink.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, you need to go back to school and learn something new, right? Some of them, you need to do research and talk to the right people. Some of us, we need to change the circle of friends. If you are with your friends and you're the only person that is the wise person there, you are in the wrong circles.
Mm.
Jumping from church to church, pastor to pastor, so that you can hear, oh, I see that you were jumping on top of a roof and then this one jumped you, right? I remember when I was young, it's funny because my cousin was telling me this a couple of weeks ago. When I was young, we had gone to pick up a friend from this church event.
Hmm.
I didn't know, I wasn't planning to go. We're just gonna go call a friend, and I didn't know that it was one of those church that when you open, everybody's sitting left and right, and the pastor is just right in the middle. So as soon as I entered, I opened the door and I entered. This pastor started saying things about my family,
Hmm.
how they are, and it's really funny because I'm like, I, the way I responded, Sika, I sounded like Kingsley responding to something. I'm telling you, the way I responded, like my friends who were there who witnessed that event, they could not believe that I said this back to the pastor,
Hmm.
right? Because if and it's funny because God has even removed all the things he said. But whatever he was saying against my family, and because I came from a family that there is so much love, right? I was able to diffuse it
right away. I think I was like 17 or 18,
Wow.
right? Imagine, as young as I was, imagine if I had absorbed and taken this in, where would I have been, right? And then I had one incident where I went to Ghana, and this church, someone invited me to this church. Me, I just said, "Oh, church, okay, let me go." This church was in a some school building, uncompleted shanty school building. I went. I'm like, this is how they are starting. So after now, this pastor called me.
Mm-hmm.
Say, let me pray for you. I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay. This pastor does not know that this woman is fire. He doesn't know me. I'm fire, fire, fire. And he said, oh, you're gonna get pregnant, this and that and that. I just listened to him and I shook my head. I was already 4 months pregnant. You are not telling me I'm going to get pregnant. Obviously, you just want to grab something from me. I just shook my head after I never returned back because this is how hungry some of them are. They are so hungry. And that one that I was talking to you about, that when I was a teenager, it was not even up to 3 years that pastor passed on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was even rumors that it was some sort of STD that killed him. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? But if I had taken that in, right, I would have been scarred. I would have been, I would have destroyed my life. I would have destroyed my destiny, right? I'm sharing this so that somebody who is listening to me will know that your most greater things that you can do for yourself as an individual is to pray for yourself, read your Bible yourself, trust God for yourself. It doesn't matter what religion you are in. If you're a
Mm.
Muslim, read your Quran.
Mm.
Pray as is subscribed in your Quran. If you're a
Mm.
Christian, be committed to your faith. Your
Mm-hmm.
faith is not in alignment with anybody.
Hmm.
Your faith is in alignment with you and your relationship between you and God and no one else. Because if you make it that way, that it's about man, this pastor, he said, oh, people will come to church and they give us 2 CDs. Were you going to serve God and open a church because of what money or people were going to bring? Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As you listen to them, all you hear was poverty talk, poverty talk, poverty talk. The money they were supposed to make from the church that they didn't make, and the suffering that came with it. Right? So that is what I'm going to conclude with. Please let us be able to really discern. Let's be wise. If you don't have a job, you have no place in being in ministry. You need to have a job. You need to have a skill. So for mommy, as a pastor's wife, you need to have your own job. We all need to have jobs that will put food on the table, not offering. Offering is not your part of how you plan your family income. So
I want
that's
you
what
to wrap this up for us, Han, because I don't have even anything. I don't have words. Like, I'm still thinking and processing the whole story from the last 3 days. It's like, this is just crazy. It's crazy. It really is. Yeah.
well, the most important thing is please don't forget to share and don't forget to subscribe to Seekers Educates YouTube channel, and please use Tap Send and use Seekers code. And really, to sum everything up, let's pray for this family, the whole entire family. The guy's mom is still alive. Let's pray for the mom that God will strengthen her so that she'll be able to go on her knees because
Mm.
she's the only person that can pray for her son. And let's also contact our contacts in Ghana. Let's all see how we can help this family, especially if this so-called child, if it's still that child is still alive. We want to try and help, right? Whichever way that we can. The most important thing is that we all can do our part to try and bring about positive change. We want
the change that you want to see, it has to start from you, right? This is a life lesson. This is not a way to make fun of anybody. This is something that we all can learn, and something that we all can do to help. There's so many ways we can help, right? As I said, if you can patronize your local, salon, your local hairdresser, your local seamstress, patronize them. The market woman, you buy something from them. If you're in the diaspora, you're listening to us. If you go to the market, you buy something from the market woman, please dash them something. Let them know that their service is appreciated, right? Yes, they couldn't have make all the money, whatever, but we want them so that young women can also want to grow up to become great, innovative market women who will bring about the change we want to see on the continent of Africa. Thank you all for listening to us. We're so grateful, and thank you for your patience with us. And hopefully, we'll see everyone next week. And Tika will be back again tomorrow morning with one of her special moments. So please don't miss it. Be there.
Thank you so much, Ekwamwa. You know I love you very much. It's very sunny and you're looking all summery and, you're giving me the whole vibe. It's like I'm trying to be like you by wearing some hot green dress, but hey, I'm trying. Yeah.
Yeah, this summer, Papa B.
I can see that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, darling.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Bye.
all. Bye-bye.